Welcome back. It's the season 4 finale of Serious and Silly. We have a very special guest today. She is the leader of the official opposition of Quebec. She is an M&A for St. Henry, St. Anne. She is the first woman to lead the Quebec Liberal Party and the first Black woman to lead any party in Quebec. And we're so happy to have her on October 3rd. She hopes to become our next premier. And it's a privilege to welcome Dominique Anglade to Champlain College. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and thank you for having me, Scott. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. I know you're super busy, so we really, really appreciate it. Dominique, I wanted to start first with you were born in Montreal, and you were telling me that between the ages of 14 and 17, you actually lived in Haiti. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that and how it kind of shaped your adulthood.
So I was born and raised in Montreal. Both my parents were originally from Haiti, and they were in Quebec, in Canada, because of the dictatorship at the time in Haiti. But when the dictator left, they decided to go back to Haiti, and at that point, I was 14 years old, and I went back with them, and I spent 3 years before coming back to Quebec, and it was a real interesting experience because there was the whole democratic process in place, so people were going to vote for the first time. I was discovering the country of my parents, traveling everywhere, meeting with people, seeing my parents being very engaged politically. So it was super interesting. At the same time, I realized that, you know, I was not a Haitian. I was a Quebecer, but originally from Haiti. It makes a difference. It was the country of my parents, but I was missing Quebec. I was missing living in Canada, and I decided to go back. But fantastic experience that really solidified the ties that I had with Haiti.
Is there truth to the rumor the reason you came back is because you missed winter?
I like winters, but that's not the reason why I needed to attend college, and I wanted to go into a program, industrial engineering, and in order for me to just continue what I wanted to do, I had to come back. So I was happy to be back, honestly.
So you brought up the politics, and I'm always amazed when people go into politics because it's a tough thing to go into. And you mentioned your dad. He was actually an advisor to Jean-Paul Bertrand Aristide, the first officially elected president of Haiti. Was that one thing that influenced you to get into politics?
Well, there's no question that the engagement of my father in politics had an impact on me. My father went into politics. He was a minister at some point in time. My grandfather was in politics. My great-grandfather was in politics. So wow. To some degree, I think it runs in our DNA. And my mom was very involved with women, fighting for the rights of women, a feminist. And I think those two influences had an impact on my decision to go into politics at some point in time, for sure, because there were always people at the house like discussing politics, telling us, you know, I was sent to jail because of my ideas, and there were always women trying to fight for other women, meeting at our place with my mom, discussing strategies and what they should be doing. So of course it has a super impact, a huge influence on the way you think and you grow and you develop.
I mentioned in my intro that you're the first woman leader of the Quebec Liberal Party and the first Black leader of any party in Quebec. And I know that's something very important to you as a role model. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Every level of diversity adds a level of complexity. So of course, when you're in politics and you're a woman, it's a bit more complex than when you're a man. And if you're a Black woman, well, it's even more complex. But it's also a breadth of experience, a different experience that you're bringing to the table. And when I talk about diversity, that's what I really, those are really my fundamental values. I believe that the differences around the table are such a positive thing, and that we're better off trying to make it work, trying to unite people rather than dividing society in general. And when I see things that are going on in the rest of the world, I'm like, oh my God, like we really need to see how we can get people to work together. When I started working, I was a young engineer. I was 22, and I started working. I went to work for Procter & Gamble in Belleville, in Ontario. And at that time, I was 4 times a minority because of my age, because of my gender, because of my color, because of the language. So I just found out what it was to be a real minority. And I took away so many learnings from that, and I still apply them today.
Yeah, the one thing they talked a lot when Barack and Michelle Obama were in the White House was representation, and young Black people seeing someone who looks like them in politics. So I think that must be something. Do you think about that a lot? Or I know you have 3 kids.
I don't necessarily think about it all the time, but I do realize that when I was younger and when I didn't have that many models, I'm thinking, well, maybe I actually go out of my ways to make sure that people feel comfortable talking to me about it. When I see people from the Black community or young women or whatever, I just hope that when people see me, they see somebody that's open about all differences, and that they can relate to me. They can have conversations. So that's. I hope I bring this to. I hope I bring this to the table.
And I mentioned you're a mother of 3. So what do your kids think about the fact that their mom is in politics? And is it something cool? Is it something that they're used to because you grew up watching your dad? Are they doing the same for you?
I don't know that I would call it cool. I'm not sure they would say that, but I think they're used to it. I've been in politics 6 years. My youngest was 4 at the time. I've always been very involved in the community, even before politics. So I think they're used to it. And for them, I'm just mom, right? I'm just a mama, and that's all there is to it. And I think it's better that way, because I made the decision to go into politics. They didn't, and I believe it's important to keep it somewhat private, somewhat separate. Although it's not that easy to do this all the time.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is that they see you on TV, and you have to take important stands. My mom, some of the great choices she had to make were, what's for dinner. You have to take stands on really important matters. Do you think about your children when you're doing that, and what effect it might have on them, or you're able to shelter them pretty well from that?
So first of all, my kids don't watch TV because they're under the age of 15. So so they're all on TikTok and Facebook, and well, not even Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, right? So they only notice when I make videos, and they're like, oh, it's on my Instagram. That's when they notice. I believe it's really when we come home and we have a dinner conversation with my husband and the kids on certain issues that we talk about this. They have questions about what I do on a daily basis. Same thing with my husband. But I think it's a natural thing for them. Of course, it's not. It's just a job that I do. They find that sometimes I'm not, and they tell me sometimes you're not home, and they will tell you, Mama, I'd like you to be home more often. This week has been hard, and this is hard on me as well, because those are tough choices that you make in your life. But in the end, they are good kids. They're happy kids, and I just want them to fulfill their dreams. Really, that I just want them to be happy in their lives, and that's what matters to me the most.
Excellent. So I want to switch gears a little bit. In about 8 months' time, a little less than 8 months, October 3rd, the provincial election is coming up, and there's a lot of hot topics, and one that's really, I guess, hot at Champlain. Obviously, we're an English CEGEP, and it's been in the news recently. What is your view on allophones and anglophones and francophones, or I guess allophones and francophones attending English CEGEPs?
Well, I believe that they, like a person that is 17 or 18, 19, should be able to decide where they go to school and what CEGEP they attend. So if your question is, am I in favor of applying Bill 101 to CEGEP? Absolutely not. And I think it would be a mistake to do it, to tell you the truth. we have to, at some point in time, we have to respect the liberties of the people, the rights of people to follow what is it that they want to do. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and now I'm going to get more political, is I hate politics of division. And that's what I see on a daily basis at the National Assembly. What François Legault is doing right now is really creating division. I suppose that you're following the issue around Dawson College, but the decision not to go through with the project of Dawson has nothing to do with equity, has nothing to do with principles. It has to do with, I'm just going to show people that I can act and divide Francophones versus Anglophones. And I find this pitiful. And I'm against it. And I've been very vocal about it. And I will continue to be vocal about this, because at the end of the day, we're facing a government that really, François Legault really likes to tell people what to do, how to do it, even how to vote. And after the last 2 years we've just gone through, you know, having the freedom to decide what you want to do. Of course, there are laws that we all have to follow, but this is also a principle that should guide us all.
Has Mr. Legault ever shown you any statistics or anything that would prove the point that, you know, Francophones and Allophones studying in English has an effect on, you know, what language they has an effect on what language they use going further? Are there any statistics that show what he's trying to prove?
None that I've seen. None that I've seen. And it's not, to me, we can do two things at the same time. We can decide that French language is really critical for Quebec. It's the official language that we have in Quebec, and it is important, and we need to reinforce it, and we need to encourage people to speak it, to learn it. It is, to me, it is critical that we do this in Quebec, and at the same time, we don't have to divide the population. We have to, like, in respect the minority groups that we have, and we can do both. François Legault likes to divide because that's beneficial to his base. And I think it's problematic. The same way you said, you know, when you are, if you are a Quebecer, it's because you are voting for the CAQ. I mean, what kind of correlation is that? It makes absolutely no sense, and it's quite insulting to all Quebecers. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I could spend a lot of time on that, but we have so many important questions that we need to get to. The next, and these aren't things that I've come up with. I've asked our students, and these are the three things that they care about. The second one was his comments on systemic racism, and I guess it kind of follows what you just said, but I know you have said that there is systemic racism. Can you just tell us about those comments and what your opinion on that matter is?
So Scott, I'm going to start by saying, you know, that by training, I'm an engineer. So I see a problem and I want to find a solution. But in order to find a solution, you need to identify the issue. Systemic racism exists. I mean, it's not a matter of like a terminology of the words that you use. It's just a fact. It's just that if you are, you have a certain skin color, or if you are part of a certain group, if you are from the indigenous community, there's 10 more times, it's 10 times more likely that you will get arrested. I mean, those are studies that came out that really identify the issue, even when the police, I mean, saying, you know, systemic racism exists. So I just think we need to name this, and then we can work together on finding solutions. The problem with, by not naming it, we're taking people for, we think people are going to say, oh, it's because you're racist or he's racist. And it's not about people being racist. It's about biases that we all have, that you have, Scott, that I have, that everybody has, and that we just need to reveal those and say, hey, this is what we create collectively, and these are the things that we need to fix collectively. And it's not a blaming session when you recognize that there is a systemic racism. I just believe that you name the problem and then you fix the issue.
So I know my follow-up question is more from Mr. Legault, but I want to ask you, what might the reason be that he doesn't want to admit that systemic racism exists when clearly there's proof everywhere that it does?
Because if he,
sorry,
because he's stubborn. I mean, there's no, he doesn't want to admit that it's wrong, and he doesn't think that it's going to appeal to his base. When he was elected, he said, I cannot believe if we're talking about systemic racism. That was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. He was saying that. So now he's appealing to an electorate, and he wants to make sure that, he's consistent with what he said before. But the reality is just, as you said, there are studies, there are many things that are proving the existence of systemic racism, and we should just be, should be open enough to have those mature conversations and to be able to move to the next step. And that's how I think. That's how I think about life in general. Just say it like it is. Say it like it is, so we can actually do something.
Yeah, the first step in fixing a problem is admitting that there is a problem. I think you probably teach that to your young children. But we'll move on from that, and we'll talk about the other third issue is the pandemic and COVID and the way Mr. Legault's government has handled that. How do you feel it's went? What would you do different? I'm just going to kind of throw that out to you as a general question.
So what would have I done differently is your question?
I guess since we're a school, do you think he's handled it well? Do you, would you give him a passing grade? Would you give him a failing grade?
At the beginning of the pandemic, I think he did well in the way he was communicating with the population and making those meetings on a regular basis and explaining to the population what was going on. In terms of communication, I think he handled that well at the beginning. But then what happened is he started feeling like he was in charge, and he was in charge of everything, but we're under the state of emergency, and we still, believe it or not, 2 years later, we're still here in Quebec in the state of emergency. We're the only place, I think, in the world feeling this way, but it doesn't matter. We are, because François Legault wants to keep it that way because he can control the agenda. He can decide who gets a contract without having to explain it. He can decide to call a curfew without having to justify it. He can shut down restaurants without having to justify it because we are under this bill. So freedom has a sense, and I think he just doesn't want to have people interfering with his decisions. So at the beginning, I think he was doing the right thing. And as time went by, he realized, there were a lot of people dying from COVID. The first wave was horrifying. And when we started asking questions about having a independent commission, independent inquiry, he didn't want to go ahead with that. And it's like, but what is he hiding? Why does he want to? And then you realize he doesn't want to go back. He doesn't want to get those answers. He doesn't want to tell us what went wrong, because there are a number of things that went wrong in this pandemic. We got terrible results. The number of people that died, the number of people that were impacted. I mean, it is, to me, not conceivable that we wouldn't do a full inquiry on what happened with such a huge impact on society.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so the election's October 3rd. Sorry, my segue is it's hard to transition. I wish we had all day to talk about these things, but
no problem.
Yeah. So yes, the election happening October 3rd. I think the one thing we learned from the Black Lives Matters movements and other movements that we've recently had is that when the youth are passionate about something, they can really make change. And so I wanted to give you this opportunity to kind of speak to our students about the importance of voting and some of the things that Dominique Anglade stands for that, would really make a difference to our youth voters.
So I'll say a few things. I'll say, okay, first of all, that voting is important. You have to find why is it that you're voting? Like, what is the cause? What is the issue that's really near and dear to your heart? And then I'll say, if you believe that fighting climate change is really at the top of our priority list, that the economy should follow, is because you are a liberal. If you think that when you have a family, like children, and they should have the right to attend daycare at $8 a day, and it should be available to everybody in Quebec, then it's because you're a liberal. If you're thinking that older people over 70 years old, they need to have more means in order to stay at home rather than go into residences. It's because you're liberal. There are liberal values that are really important. And I think people should look at the issues that are at stake. And a lot of people might think, okay, well, you know, this progressive message, because Liberal Party is a progressive party, this inclusiveness, the notion of inclusion is really critical. Everybody has to be part of the history that we want to make. And I think it's the Liberal Party that is offering the best alternative for Quebec.
So when our 17 to 19-year-old students, you know, hopefully go to the ballot box on October 3rd, what, you know, a lot of people say, well, it's the same. All the parties are the same. And what would you say to that?
Look at south of the border. I mean, do you think it's the same? Because it's like when Trump was elected, was it the same? I mean, there are things that are not the same. There are things that we've gone through. There are governments that are telling you what to do, how to think, how to vote. And there are governments that are saying, you know, you're big enough. You can think on your own. You can make your own decisions. We can be inclusive. You see decisions that are being made today that are not inclusive, that are not acceptable. Dawson is one of them. So I think voting actually matters. I really do. And I would like to see a younger generation more involved, more engaged, and really have a clear voice. We need to hear that voice. We really need to hear that voice.
100% agreed. Yeah, the youth are, well, yeah, when they get together, you know, the opportunities are endless. So I want to end it with this. It is serious and silly. We've been very serious. It's time we move into, I guess, a little bit of the silly. I want to help you with your campaign. You know, we have 7.5 months to go, and I feel like it's my duty. You were so nice to come on, serious and silly, that so I'm going to give you a few things that I think might help your campaign, and you can tell me what you think about them. So these are campaign promises. The first campaign promise, being Quebec, it's very simple. Free poutine for everybody.
Free what?
Free poutine for everybody.
Oh, free poutine.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this idea. But which poutine is going to come from? You have to make some griot from Haiti to make it work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll work on it. We're just brainstorming right now. You know, we don't have to make any final decisions. We have 7 months to go.
Free poutine for everybody.
But I think, yeah. All right. Second thing, another campaign promise. Everybody gets their birthday off, whether you're a student, an employee. You know, your birthday is a free holiday. What do you think about that?
You know what? My birthday is very special to me. Like I really enjoy celebrating my birthday. So I think this might come on top of the list, like higher than the poutine.
Okay. All right. And if you actually voted for the Liberal Party and Dominique Anglade, she will call you and sing happy birthday to you. So it's kind of like incentive.
Oh, this is number one. I love singing, but nobody wants to listen to my singing. So this is number one for sure.
Okay. See, we're making progress. I like where we're going. Now, this one might be a little bit more about me than about you. But, you know, again, I just want to, you know, if our students watch this show, and you might have to consult with your education minister, they get a 5% bump in their grade.
If they what?
If they watch my show with Dominique Anglade, they get a 5% plus in their grades.
Where do I rank it? Where do I rank it? 5% on there. I can't do ranking of grades. I can't do that though.
No.
So
Okay.
that one I'll have to pass. I'll have to pass, Scott.
Well, they get the free poutine and the birthday wish, so I think, you know, all is
and
good.
Maybe the call.
And the call to wish them happy birthday. I want to thank you so much for joining us. It was really, really nice to talk to you. I know you're super busy. Anything that you'd like to add before we sign off?
It was a real pleasure, Scott. And if people have questions for me, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what I enjoy the most in what I do, is talking to people, understanding what issues they're facing. So it just makes me a better person overall. So thank you so much for your time.
And if you're ever in Saint-Lambert, when you're doing your little tours, remember Champlain College, you're always welcome to drop by and speak to our students in person, because we love to have guests. And, you know, like I said, you're a role model to a lot of people, and I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Thank you so much to you.
All the best. Thank you, and good luck on
Take
October
care.
3rd.
Thank you, man. Let's be in touch. Bye-bye.